recording now. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Solar Gators / Gatorloop alumni event. Hope you guys are having a good time right now. And so we're going to go through and we're going to introduce our alumni, and they're going to talk a little bit about what they're doing, about their college experience, and any advice they might have for you. So Charles, you want to start off with the Solar Gators alumni?
Yep. I have two alumni here today, Chin and Giovanni. Do you guys want to introduce yourself? Tell us what you're a part of in the club and what you've done afterwards.
Go ahead, Chin.
Unmute yourself just to tell me to go ahead. Nice. So I'm sort of a weird. I was part of Solar Gators for quite a while. I was there starting in the beginnings from 2010 till it was disbanded, till I graduated in 2014. But when I came back, I was basically serving more as like an advisor / mentor, sort of like a guy who carries all, who wears all the hats, and was basically responsible for mainly the mechanical system. And after what year was that? The 2017 race. I really just served as like an advisor / mentor.
All right, and I'll go. So sorry, I'm driving actually right now down to Atlanta. I'm kind of in between jobs. I'll talk about that later. So yeah, Giovanni Hernandez. I joined in 2017. I joined right before we were going to competition there for the first time, doing some suspension stuff and some random other mechanical items there. Gained a lot of experience going to comp that first year. And then when I came back, I was more heavily involved with suspension design and brakes design. And then I later on became the mechanical project manager for the mechanical side of things, 2019. So yeah, and I graduated 2020.
Right. Awesome. So let's go ahead and start with our Gatorloop alumni. Derek, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. My name's Derek Deal, graduated in August of 2020. I had the pleasure of being the Gatorloop president from around, I want to say 2018 to 2020 in some capacity. It's kind of blurred for me. It wasn't that long ago, but I have a terrible memory. But that was a fantastic time. Got the chance to really grow a lot of skills and try and usher in a new era of what I thought of Gatorloop, so to speak. And so I had the chance to work with a lot of the folks here on this call, which was a pleasure. Now I'm currently working out of Fort Myers, Florida, remotely for a company called Gartner, which is an IT advisory firm. So I work in sort of a research IT consulting capacity. So happy to open up a discussion and anything about UF, college, Gatorloop, or the professional life thus far. That's it for me.
Awesome. Doug, how about you next?
Yeah, what's up, guys? My name's Doug. I was a mechanical engineer at UF. I graduated August 2020, or fall 2020, whatever you want to call it. Or no, when did I graduate? Spring 2020. I graduated in the spring. Shit. Anyway, yeah, so I'm currently at L3 Harris. I work at an aerospace optics division. We design payloads and optical systems that take pictures in space, basically. Going back to school at Northeastern for my master's in mechatronics. And with Gatorloop, I was the treasurer for a little bit. And then I also worked in the braking and the structures portion of that. It's a good time, and just enjoy it while you have it,
Awesome. Let's do Ryan next.
Hey guys, I'm Ryan. Graduated UF with an electrical engineering degree in about it was 2019. 2019 spring. I was the electrical hardware lead for Gatorloop for I think it was 2 years, which is a great experience. Right now, I work for Siemens in Atlanta in the electric vehicles division. So we just do the propulsion systems for, electric buses, trucks, pretty much anything that anybody wants or needs to electrify. That's what I'm working on now. So, yeah.
And best for last, let's go Raymond.
Hey, I'm Raymond. I joined Gatorloop and at the beginning of 2018. I didn't really contribute much that spring, but I contributed a bunch in the fall, and then I think the software lead ended up stepping down, so I kind of took that role for the rest of that year. And unfortunately, we didn't make it to the competition that year, but we still got to, Derek and I got to attend the competition anyway, so that was pretty cool. And then I done some work on the Tiny Pod at Gatorloop, and then I actually also transitioned into Solar Gators a little bit with my last year in college. I graduated in 2020, and I'm now working for a company in town called STEM Sims. They make like educational software, and it's like doing web development stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome. So, Skylar, you want to start off with some questions for for our alumni here?
Yeah, of course. We've got a lot of younger people joining the teams, especially just over the last 2 years. Last year, a lot of freshmen who came in were online. And this year, a lot of freshmen who are coming in had the online their senior year. And so we basically got 2 years of people who haven't had the full collegiate experience. So I'll start just from the beginning of college. How did you guys know that whatever you were studying was the thing that you wanted to study in? Was it a calling, or did you have an experience that was like, this is it? Or do you still not know? However that goes. So if anyone wants to pipe in.
Ryan, were you EE all the way through?
No, actually. So I started on the exploratory engineering path, and then I was officially a computer engineer for I think it was like half a semester maybe. And I just did not like it. And I knew that, I guess for me, it was like searching for what I didn't really want to do. And it kind of pointed me to the area of electrical. I remember meeting up with my advisor, and I sort of wanted to do stuff that was still, that was a little bit more broad, that you could apply to a bunch of different areas. And she was like, oh, well, it's still close to, it's similar credits to computer engineering, but, electrical engineers are used, here, power, and it's pretty much integrating anything that needs to be, embedded systems, or I don't know, just you could name something and it needs an electrical engineer. So I gave it a shot, and I liked the people in my major. I liked the courses, and just kind of kept going from there. So.
That's a good one. I'm not going to chime in here because my college experience was a shit show. So I'm probably the last person to go. So just going to throw that out there.
I'd say that it's you will likely not find your calling or whatever you want to say it is in college. As an undergrad, when I was at UF, I probably was doing too many things and spreading myself too thin. And while it's a good way for you to get the experience, you just become like not an expert, but you know everything, but you're an expert in none kind of a deal. And my recommendation for people who are coming in and like trying to find that one thing or whatever, it's try not to focus on that. Just enjoy the experience of learning and going to different clubs, and it's really going to be about the people that you're working with and the team environment, not so much about the content itself. Like that, it depends on the person. But in my case, I think that doing Solar Gators was really because of the people that were in it and the dedication that they had to the club.
Hey, so let's move on to another question. Charles, you can pose
So
one in.
I had my last alumni join just now. So Vrushank, if you want to introduce yourself real quick, tell us what you did on Solar Gators and what you're currently doing.
Hey guys, my name is Vrushank. I hope you're able to hear me fine. It's a lot of background noise where I am. I was a part of Solar Gators from my freshman year to my super senior year, so for 5 years, from 2016 to 2021. I had a variety of roles, like official roles were aero body lead, brakes lead, treasurer, president, and yeah, I think those were like, as far as titles go, I think I was deeply or loosely involved in most parts of the team at some point over those 5 years. Currently, I am in California, still at work on battery design engineering because it's 5 p.m. here, and I'm at the factory, so that's why, if you're wondering why it sounds like there's a war going on, it's because there kind of is. So.
Awesome. And Charles, you have a question for the alumni?
Yeah. So a lot of students, when they're going up through their career and they get close to their graduation, they start to think about higher education. So mainly I'll just ask this question: what do you advise in regards to that, or if you advise or don't advise it, or if you want to leave it up to the student, how do you decide whether you want to go to higher education, that being master's and doctorate, if anyone wants to answer that?
Yes, I'll take a stab at that one. So I graduated in 2020. I worked for a year and now I'm back. I just started in the fall or like a couple weeks ago at Northeastern for my master's, and it's kind of been like a rough road this last year. To be honest, I haven't really liked what I've been doing that much, and that's probably what has driven me back to go get my master's, to get a little bit more experience and something I'm probably more interested in. Designing optics is cool, and it's a lot of structures work and forces and all that, but I'm probably more interested in like the sensors side and control side of engineering or mechanical engineering with mechatronics. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, maybe when you graduate, take a look at like what you've experienced, what you haven't experienced. I would recommend maybe or probably going to work in industry for about a year, just to get a grip of what it's like, whether or not you like that, whether you do. If you decide, like based on your experience, you like research, maybe it's worth going for a PhD. If you decide you like what you do, but you want to focus on like a specific area of it, it may be worth going to get a master's degree in that specific application. But yet again, it comes down to money and financials, and that's another great thing about having a job. A lot of engineering companies will actually pay for you to get your master's. So that's definitely another reason why I recommend going to a job first.
See Gabe in here. Want to get that boy an intro?
Yeah.
Man, I heard about being late.
Gabe, you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. My name's Gabe. I was the Gatorloop president 3 before Mark, I want to say. It was Skylar, then Derek, then myself. And you had a whole bunch of presidents at once for the first year. But yeah, I was in Gatorloop from 2015 to 2019. Then 2020, I did Gator Electric Racing. I was also the propulsion lead for Gatorloop. And then later I got more involved with battery stuff. Then I started work for Cummins. And now I work with NPBU service. There's the new power service for Cummins, which is all the electric vehicles. Right now I'm servicing electric buses, and I've had a good time playing with those today. So that's why I'm late.
No worries. Anyone else want to take a stab at the higher education question before we move on to the next one?
Go ahead.
I heard the end of Doug's, but I'm kind of in the same boat as him, which is you can always go for it later. And I think when you have more capital and more because once you explore industry a little bit, you have, I think, more of a refined idea of what you want to explore. So I wouldn't rush into it. That's my take.
I'll second that.
With that too.
And to just talk about the doctorate stuff, I was actually going to pursue a doctorate degree. So my timeline of getting my degrees, I graduated my bachelor's in 2014 and then got my master's in 2017. I worked for a year in between those. And then I worked for about almost 4 years before pursuing the doctorate. And basically, I think getting a master's is going to become more valuable in the future, especially for engineers and for people who want to be, for example, if people want to get a higher pay grade or they want to be more specialized, I would advise getting a master's or to find something that you want to do that you don't enjoy. That was my purpose for getting a master's. But for doing a doctorate degree, I would highly advise anybody who wants to do research to really do their research about getting a doctorate degree, because I was about to do one and then at the last minute decided to defer for a year because a lot of these programs are, they're not easy, and it's great that you can live as like a student again for 5 years and you basically have a low paying job for 5 years. But at the same time, it's also 5 years of your life. And you could also be making a lot more income as an engineer or as a researcher. And in short, it's to each, in short, I would recommend doing a master's for the majority of people, but doctor, that's up to the person. You really have to have a very specific idea of what you want to do.
Awesome. So we'll move on to the next question. So I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think helped you the most with getting your current position that you did in college? Or was it something outside of college that you did that you think helped you out with getting your current position?
Shep. Go to Shep, go to Nesby, go to all those. A lot of companies like to hire from those. Make use of that.
I think what Gabe is getting at is just like in general networking. Networking is probably the best skill you can learn, whether or not it's networking with people at SHEP or one of these societies, or just if you have an internship, network with the people there. And maybe if they leave companies and they work at a company that you want to work at, you can talk to them and maybe get a job there. So again, use LinkedIn, network, do all that.
Yeah, it really depends on where you go, but I've seen a lot of people hiring at those, and I 100% recommend. It's also a good way to just like enjoy yourself, because those have always been really fun. I ended up going to the Cleveland one, and I really wish that I went to a few more, but in general, they're just really good to go and test the waters.
I would say definitely join a design team early. Freshman year is probably your best year to join a design team. Get that experience on your resume as early as possible, and then go to, showcase and be confident. Get that first internship, and then hopefully you like what you do, and then you get the same thing for full time or whatever. So, and yeah, I second the things on going to SHIP. I went to 3 different SHIP conferences, and they were all amazing. So many companies hire there, so definitely try to go to one of those SHIP, SWE, NSB. All of them.
Awesome. Anyone else? Yeah, Raymond?
Yeah, I second the experience from the design teams for sure. But aside from the experience, I think you make a lot of connections that may not be valuable immediately, but in the future at these design teams, because we all grow up to be great engineers, and you'll forever have those connections. So I think aside from just the experience, the connections is great with the design teams.
Definitely. I'll give a little bit of an extra spin on that and say it's fantastic to make connections with design teams. That's probably one of the most valuable things that I can see. Another is take as many opportunities as you can, and don't be afraid to go to every networking event that you can. Go to networking events outside of your circle, outside of your college, etc., and just make sure you're networking, because the opportunities go to those who take risks and take chances and put themselves out there. And I think that now during this COVID era, because it's so easy to be behind a screen and have virtual calls, it's sort of diminished our drive to go out and make connections and grasp opportunities. But don't lose that drive, because somebody else will have it and they'll be the ones that get the opportunity. So I think that's another component too.
Awesome. Skylar, you want to throw out the next question?
Sure. I'll actually build off what Derek said and ask a question based on that. What is something that you guys did in college that you would encourage everyone to try? Doesn't have to exactly relate to your major. Could be something that helped you physically, emotionally, socially, whatever. Just start a side project. Did you go and, I don't know, tilt a school bus? Whatever.
We used to go cow flipping outside of the solar park. Just kidding. Gabe, you're muted.
Those bovines, man, just gotta push them over.
I feel like that's a question
for legal reasons. That is a joke.
Yeah. I would definitely say don't spread yourself too thin. And I know that's really hard, as many engineers and non-engineers, especially UF students, like top 5, yeah, let's go. But like part of that really needs to be improving upon the rest culture. You know, it can't just be rise and grind. You have to take breaks. You have to take care of yourself, and setting those boundaries are important. Not just for you, but for those of your teammates that you're supporting. But yeah, for your own sake as well. And setting priorities is really good. So, you know, if a design team is what you love and what you want to be a part of, make that a priority. But if you have a few things that you like and maybe it's not one of the things that you want to do, be clear, you know, be open, communicate, and really take care of yourself.
Yeah, I'll add to that and say get some sort of exercise or cardio relief when you're doing this, because I mean, it didn't matter how many back-to-back exams and projects I had. Like, always made time to go to rec sports, like go to my rec sports game, and because otherwise I would just go, personally I would go crazy, like without getting, you know, some outdoor. It doesn't even have to be the gym. Just go for a walk or something, because it's going to get crazy and you're going to get overwhelmed. But if you can get some exercise, some hangout time with your friends, you know, take care of yourself.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. Charles, you want to go next?
Yeah. So this is kind of maybe one that's a little bit of a niche question. But recently at my internship, a lot of my coworkers had varying opinions about where the best place for you to go versus large versus small company when you're looking for a job. So I want to go ahead and open the floor and see what you guys think. Compare, like, if you've been to multiple jobs, you've been to multiple job interviews, that you heard from people. What do you think in the difference of culture between like a large company like Lockheed or maybe a small startup?
Where did you intern?
I interned at a very small defense contractor, so I'm on the small company gang.
I worked at 2 startups after I got my master's, and I also worked at Ford after I got my bachelor's. So I have both sides, and my experience with Ford was like good. I actually didn't really have too much of a large company type of feel because I was in the research department. So I did work very specifically on like a project, but I never really got to see like the impact of that project later on. I never knew if and ever, anything was done with it. But after my master's at the two startups I worked for, I'm working on like the cutting edge stuff, and you're basically producing things that can be given to investors, content that can be given to investors, and work that could potentially be published in conferences or things like that. So, and that could have an impact on the outcome of the company. I can't say like, I think it's going to depend on the person on who's going to enjoy the big company versus small company. There's pros and cons with each of them, but I think it might be important for people to get both sides of that experience to figure out what they like more.
Yeah, when I graduated, I actually started with Honeywell, which is a giant company, in 2020. And I ended up not liking it. It was very slow moving. Things were kind of in an inefficient state that I felt could have easily been fixed, but because of kind of bureaucracy of the company, it wasn't happening. And I felt like I was like I don't know, I think kind of like Chen was saying, a small cog in like a big system. So I decided to join a startup in Gainesville, and had the complete opposite experience, where everything I'm working on is actually being used by people and making an impact. Where at Honeywell, it was more just like honestly copying and pasting code sometimes. And but I agree that I think it depends on the person. It depends on what you want out of your job. Like I really wanted to grow my experience and do more and learn more than just what I was doing at Honeywell. And there's certainly people that are, they just want to, not do as much and, have a life and stuff. So, but that's kind of my take on it.
Anyone else for the big or small take? I know that Doug and Ryan, you guys are saying that you might need to drop off. You guys still good to keep going, or?
Yeah, no, I was actually gonna say, I was about to shoot a message saying I gotta go.
All right.
It was good catching up with everyone. Hope to see you guys again soon. But
thank you for your time, Doug.
I have to bounce too, but
Good
yeah,
luck.
it was good to see everybody, and good luck with everything.
Yep.
So,
thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Boys.
See you guys. And yeah, I'll add something real quick to that question. Yeah, so I worked at GE Aviation up in Cincinnati. And yeah, I second the thoughts on how you're just a small cog in a giant machine. But I still think a big company does offer you some good benefits in terms of like what they're able to offer you. Like if you don't like your job, you can switch over to a different role kind of easily. It depends on what you're doing, I guess. But also other benefits that they offer are pretty nice. I guess I don't entirely know how much a small company can offer in terms of like tuition reimbursement and whatnot, but I think a lot of the more major companies do offer a lot of good stuff, so I would watch out for that.
Yeah, and I totally agree there as well. I had to say I traded some major benefits when I went to startup. They just are not at the scale to offer those sorts of things for sure. But there are other benefits like equity and things that you get from a startup that you don't get so much from a big company.
It's just one last thing to add to. When I was at Ford, there was a lot of freedom to move around, and at a big company, most big companies always have an R&D department. So, like, yeah, you can be at a startup and work on the cutting edge stuff, but at large companies, I mean, they're going to try to work on cutting edge things as well. So there's an opportunity for people to sort of, get a taste and a feel of that.
Awesome. All right, Scott, you have a follow-up for this question.
Yeah, so I think just from a couple of the stories, it's obvious that culture is one, a very important aspect of where you work, if not one of the most important aspects. So I kind of want to break down the question of big versus small. Is what factors of culture would you guys say are the most important, at least to yourselves? Like, what do you look for whenever you were transitioning from a big company to the startup, or when you were working at Ford? Like, what did you see and you're like, I appreciate this, or I don't appreciate this?
I'm kind of going through this right now, so I'll hop in. And I think there's a corporate term for it, which is what I'll give you. But I think there's also ways to replicate that in the startup realm, which is a succession plan, or in other words, climbing the ladder in some ways. Corporate gives you a very predefined way to do so, promoting or moving to other business units. In other words, it's very easy and honestly better for a corporation to hold on to you and move you to somewhere else to make you happy rather than to lose you and rehire. So most corporations tend to have, succession plans in place, which is good to sort of help you, get where you want to go. And at the same time, on the flip side with the startup end, I would say it's a bit more not so clearly defined, but then again, there aren't as many guidelines and or guide rails telling you what you can and can't do, which I think from both ends, corporate and non-corporate, plays into the culture in some way. I think in the startup realm, it spurs a bit more of a fast team culture, whereas nowadays in corporate, it's a bit more siloed and separated, and much more building your own brand as an individual within the larger company. So I think the culture can spread a few different ways in those two realms.
Anyone else for this question for culture?
I think the biggest thing I learned from working at a startup is make sure you know what the motives of the upper management are. And that the understanding of what the motives are can really influence the decisions of the company and therefore the progress of the company itself. I actually ended up getting laid off, and from that, and I think a lot of that could have been prevented if upper management had more of like a foot in the door kind of a deal, like if they were more involved with their company. So, and that can be applied to like any other role as well. Even within the team at a large company, you can have really bad managers or you can have really good managers. So, and the idea is just to recognize that early on and then to quickly or strategically move away from that.
Cool. So I'll move on to another question. What would you say is the thing you most enjoy in your right now life after college?
Money.
to not have to worry about school all the time. Like it's like when you're on vacation or something, you're like thinking, oh, I've got like a report due. I should be working on it. Well, with work, it's not so much. Sometimes it can be, but like 90% of the time, it's like, oh, it's 5 o'clock. It's time to get out of here.
You're your own person. I mean, once you're at that stage, it is what you make of it. And yeah, those things are all nice for sure. But you have the kind of, I think, freedom to enjoy yourself more.
Anyone else have things they enjoy, or they just generally don't enjoy things?
I mean, you have your free time, right? So like over the summer, I converted my bike to electric, and I wouldn't have been able to do that, without that free time. Like, and I enjoy doing, simple things, or not simple, but I guess just those are the things that you enjoy doing.
Awesome. Skylar, Charles, who wants to go next with a question?
Got a good add on to this. I'll kind of bring it back towards the professional setting. Is there anything about your guys' job that you find either satisfying or frustrating, or both?
I'm doing service. There's a lot of things that I could say about designs that will make our lives easier if they're implemented.
I mean, specifically for a startup, I think this would be a common thing. What's frustrating is we don't have a lot of other software engineers. So if we have an issue, it's more like you got to deal with it and you got to start Googling, finding a solution. Whereas when I was at Honeywell, it was like, oh, I ran into this problem. Let me text, Jane or someone, and they're gonna have a solution for me. But that's another one of those drawbacks of a startup is like you just don't have as many people to fall back on. So that's one of the frustrating things.
I will say on the flip side, because I work for pretty big companies, when things get really big and you don't have great organization, things can get muddled. You don't really know who to follow up with for certain items. And that can be a bit frustrating. So the more organization skills you have, the better it usually is. And sometimes you find that some groups will do things in their best interest, and you think they're in the best interest of the company, but it may be making another person's job a little more challenging for another part of the company. So those are some of the frustrating things. But there's a lot of places to explore on the flip side. So if you don't find your fit in one area, there's always another area you could try. So
I really echo what Raymond said. The startups I worked for, they were doing a lot of research, and it's not anything like software engineering where you can like sort of Google the answer and like somebody already like had this code written up. I was doing a lot of like process engineering, and if something didn't work, there could be like a million reasons why it didn't work, but there's nobody on the internet that can tell you like which one of those is the reason. So for me, it was trying to balance that and then also trying to manage like upper management's expectations. So just trying to, push myself to experiment in an efficient way, but also make sure that making some kind of progress so that upper management can be at least satisfied.
Awesome. Another question here. Is there anything that you guys now realize that you should have done or you could have done while you were in college that you would recommend to younger students? And this is probably the last question. So anything on that nature you guys would recommend for younger students?
I didn't know there's a leisure bartending class.
What? Really?
Wait, what?
Yeah, at the Wright Center.
I was actually looking into that.
Yeah. Yeah. So for anyone who's over 21, definitely recommend going to check that out. If that's interesting to you. So now you know.
Along the same lines, I also didn't know there was a scuba diving class at UF until the end. I was like, dang, I should have went and taken that class.
Like I've said to a lot of you guys here on the call, explore Gainesville. Gainesville is super dope. I think far too many people don't stick their head outside of UF, and I get that. Engineering is incredibly difficult, and you guys are, working really hard. But step outside, go to downtown. I mean, of course, when you're 21 plus, but even if not, there's so many bands that come into town. The music scene is growing a lot. There's a lot of places to go in nature, go to the springs, et cetera, et cetera. Really get out and don't forget that you're a part of a community. You're a part of a city, and there's a lot of other people outside of just the university that contributes to that city for you to do things. So, really just make the most of that, and don't forget, because, I'm out of Gainesville at this point, as are most of the folks on this call, and I still think Gainesville was really cool, and I had a fantastic time there. So definitely explore. Did you say that was the last question?
Yeah, I just want to let Chen and Giovanni put in their 2 cents, and then we'll finish up.
Yeah, I really agree with what Derek was saying. I spread myself way too thin during my undergrad years. I was doing too many extracurriculars and not really getting any kind of enjoyment, outside of school life. And also for people who, for freshmen who view this, at least when I was in high school, I was in like so many extracurricular activities and I was just like part of every club. And I felt like I had this expectation to sort of repeat that same pattern in college. Don't do that. Like, you get to choose what you want to be a part of. You get to choose your interests and do like 1 to 2 things a year. Like, don't do like 4 or 5, like what I ended up doing.
For sure.
Yeah, I feel like I had a pretty chill college experience. I wasn't too spread out. I had fun. So make sure you do that. Make sure what you say, you do what everybody else is saying here, because for sure it can get pretty tough. But yeah. Sorry, I'm still in traffic.
No worries. All right. So thank you guys for taking time out of your day to come out to this panel. You guys gave a great variety of answers, and I'm hoping they'll help out our students on Solar Gators and for Gatorloop. So thank you again, guys. I'm going to stop the recording now, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your night.